Welcome to the land of the Dogon, an ancient people rooted in the heart of eastern Mali. Here, massive cliffs rise like stone guardians over a land where villages were literally carved into rock faces centuries ago. This rugged, majestic landscape was once the crown jewel of Mali's tourism. Just 10 years ago, travelers from around the world flocked here. But everything changed in 2016. Now it's one of the most dangerous places in the entire country. Islamist militants control large swaths of this territory. Neither the Malian army nor French forces dare to set foot here anymore. We pass a rare sight: armed men standing guard at a checkpoint. They're not soldiers. They're locals trying to fill a void the state has left behind. Our driver Motobo used to give tours here. Today he navigates danger, not tourists. "How's the family?" someone asks. "All good, thank God," Motobo replies with a tired smile. These makeshift checkpoints mark the border into Dogon territory. Tensions are high, every car is stopped, searched. The threat of jihadist infiltration is constant. Only locals are allowed through. We're now entering Songo, a village that's become something of a fortress. It's home to a training camp for a legendary warrior brotherhood, the Dozo. They're easy to spot, dressed in traditional gear, wearing amulets believed to offer protection, even from bullets. Armed with hunting rifles and blades, these men are more than fighters. They're symbols of resilience. The Dozo don't stand alone. They're part of a larger militia known as Danam Basagu, made up of around 1,000 fighters. At the helm is Yusuf Toloba, a leader so hunted he rarely shows his face, choosing instead to hide deep in the cliffs. We're led to him by Commander Mator, a young fighter in his 20s. "We're heading to Casa," he tells us. "You'll see where the attacks happened. It's crawling with jihadists." Mator and his team patrol the cliffs, the final barrier between the militants and the remaining Dogon villages. Over a dozen communities have already been burned to the ground. Homes, food stores, livestock, all destroyed or stolen. Even though their families live just 20 kilometers away, these men only return home a few times a year. "We live out here for months at a time," Mator says. "We don't go back. Not even for a day." He was just 15 when he left school to join the fight. Now, at 25, he commands men twice his age, farmers, herders, fathers, who never thought they'd carry weapons. One former herder tells us, "They took all our animals. We had no choice." Another adds, "I was in Quran school. They burned everything, even the prayer mats in the graves. But still, they stand their ground." "The government doesn't see us," one fighter says. "But this is our land. We're still here. We're at war. And we're not going anywhere." We were given rare permission to live among them for a few days. What we witnessed was not just a militia, but a movement, a determined defense of a heritage, a land, a people. This small strip of land lies in the Sahel, the belt that stretches across Africa from the Atlantic to the Red Sea. It's a place of fragile balance, where farmers and herders have lived side by side for generations. Now that balance is unraveling. Across the region, in 8 different countries, jihadist groups are gaining ground. In Mali, they united in 2017 under the Al-Qaeda umbrella, pushing a brutal agenda of Sharia law. The Malian army, plagued by corruption and repeated coups, hasn't been able to stop them. Even with over a decade of French military support, the situation has only worsened. As the state retreats, old rivalries over land and water are reignited, and the jihadists know exactly how to use those cracks to recruit. Some of their recruits now want out. They control everything, one says. You have to follow orders even if you don't want to. But not every country in the Sahel has succumbed. One exception stands out: Mauritania. There, the military has taken a different path, blending traditional community engagement with modern counterinsurgency tactics, including airstrikes. So far, they've managed to push the jihadists back. But in places like the Dogon Cliffs, the fight rages on without government, without outside help, just ordinary people doing the extraordinary to defend their land and way of life. Deep in the heart of the Sahel, where the land stretches dry and endless, soldiers on camelback ride through the desert not to take livestock, but to gather intelligence. "We don't want your sheep," one calls out. "We're here for information." This is no ordinary patrol. It's a journey into one of the most dangerous front lines in West Africa, the Sahel, a region now overrun by jihadist groups. In Mali alone, nearly 60% of all militant attacks take place here. The Dogon Plateau stands as one of the last natural strongholds. Jagged cliffs form a kind of fortress, keeping jihadist fighters at bay and protecting the larger cities above. But they're surrounded. The enemy is everywhere below, around, and closing in. High in these cliffs, one group holds the line. Danam Basagu, a local militia of Dogon hunters. Led by Commander Mator, they fight without state support in brutal conditions. By midday, the sun scorches the rock at 113 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 degrees Celsius. Shade offers little relief. Food is scarce. Crops don't ripen fast enough to feed everyone. It's survival mode every day. In these parts, even getting supplies takes courage. Villagers scale steep cliffs to bring the fighters food and water. One of them is Bashir, who returned to his homeland a year ago to help. "Glory to you," they say as he arrives, touching the earth in a gesture of deep respect. Bashir hands out bread, a few precious jugs of water. "We haven't eaten since last night," one fighter says quietly. "We'll take care of that," Bashir replies. "You have my word." Before anyone can eat, Mator posts guards around the camp. There are many of them out there, he warns. Too close. From this high vantage point, the fighters keep watch. About 30 jihadist cells operate just below the cliffs. The closest is barely a kilometer away. No binoculars are needed. You can see them with the naked eye. The fighters clean their weapons, not military issue, but ones taken from jihadists in battle. "Are those army rifles?" "No," one replies. "We took them after a fight. They were theirs, not anymore." There's no help from the Malian army, no backup from international forces. They're on their own. Every time Mater reaches a new ridge, he checks in with their elusive leader, Yusuf Toloba, over a scratchy radio. "Yes, first camp. Copy that. Okay, let's eat." Meals here are quiet, almost sacred. No one speaks. No one puts down their rifle. Every bite could be the last. Around 50 units like Mater's patrol the cliffs. One of them is led by Toloba himself, the militia's founder and most hunted man in these mountains. He avoids cameras, rarely speaks to outsiders. But today, through the help of a trusted intermediary, he agrees to talk. "Tell him I only came because of you," he says. "Even my own people barely see me. They might glimpse me passing by, that's it." Toloba's story goes back decades. He left the Malian army 25 years ago to fight in the Tuareg rebellion. When jihadists began their spread across the region, he returned home and formed Danam Basagu in 2016. All these hunters, they're Dogon, they're Malian. "No foreigners," he says. "The government gives us nothing. No guns, no support. We fight with what we can take from the enemy. The army doesn't help. France doesn't help. No one does. But the local people, they believe in them. And that's kept them going. Still, the cost has been staggering. Since 2016, the jihadists have burned down 12 villages in the nearby commune of Kassa. What they can't steal, they destroy. They took what they could: animals, motorcycles, cooking tools, then set fire to everything else. The Dogon cliffs remain standing, but they're one of the last places in Mali where the line hasn't broken. And the men who defend it do so with grit, not resources, holding their ground inch by inch, hoping someone, somewhere, is still watching. The villagers were given a grim choice: pay the jihadists' so-called Islamic tax, or watch everything they own go up in flames. They chose survival. But survival came at a price. Everything: the grain, the onions, the homes, all of it was either stolen or burned to ash. And now, slowly, painfully, it's being rebuilt. Musa Toloba, deputy mayor of Kassa, walks the land that was once fertile. There used to be millet here. Onions, too. They destroyed it all, took what they could and torched the rest. The jihadists aren't just fighting a war. They're trying to erase anything that doesn't fit their rigid ideology. Back in 2012, they smashed historic tombs and shrines in Timbuktu, sacred Muslim sites, and UNESCO World Heritage treasures. Tribal art didn't escape their wrath either. They've shattered ancient statues, some believed to house spirits. Now the last line of defense is the cliff itself. Just a few narrow trails lead to the Dogon Plateau, and Mater's men defend them with everything they've got. "See this?" Mater points. "Ammo wrappers, cookie crumbs. They camped here before trying to breach the cliffs. It happened 5 months ago. Nearly 100 jihadist fighters came up from the plains. Mater's unit, only 24 strong, was waiting. They came with heavy firepower, rockets, automatic rifles. We held this position for 6 hours. There were casualties. Mater lost 7 men that day. But we didn't fold. We never will. This is our land. If we leave, where would we go? The army's not coming. We've got no other option. Mater's resolve is steel. They call me Mater, he says, means hammer. The little hammer that strikes the big stone. At nightfall, the Dozo militia sets up camp. The rules are strict. No lights, no fires, no visible movement. Bashir, the loyal villager, returns with dinner. The fire goes here, someone says, pointing to a hidden spot, so it won't be seen from the plains. Even a cigarette has to be lit undercover. Every movement is calculated. Sleep happens on the rocks, rifles at the ready. The next morning, the group descends into Kassa, the main town in the region. It's a place that's become a prime target for jihadist raids. Before entering, the hunters remove their traditional garments and magical charms. It's a sign of respect and protection. Kassa's school has been closed for over a year. The teachers fled after the last wave of attacks. Now classrooms serve as temporary shelters for the Dozo fighters. Mater meets with Deputy Mayor Musatolo, one of the last government officials who hasn't abandoned his post. "We're okay," Musatolo replies. "God bless you. You're our protectors, our only line of defense. The jihadists have attempted to overrun Kassa 6 times. Thanks to Mator and the Dozo, they've failed every time. Doesn't the government know what's going on here?" "They do," Musatolo says, "but they're afraid to come. Even the mayor stays in Koro." When political leaders disappeared, Musatolo turned to local tradition. He now works hand in hand with Hogan, the community's spiritual leader, to deal with the region's twin crises, insecurity and economic collapse. "They've taken all our livestock," he says. "Cattle, goats, sheep gone. That's everything to us. That's our future. Livestock isn't just food, it's currency. One ox can be worth 6 times the average Malian's monthly salary. With 68 million head of cattle, Mali used to be one of West Africa's meat hubs, exporting beef to Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso. But the war has crushed the supply chain, and with it, local nutrition. In the town of Bandiagara, home to 25,000 people, meat has become a luxury. At the local market, butchers stand idle. "The biggest problem here," one of them says, "meat. There's almost none. Prices have spiked 25% in just 3 years. A kilo of red meat now costs 3,000 CFA francs, about $5 per kilo. For many, that's 2 days' wages. We used to make a living," says one butcher. "Now, we barely survive. Half of the market stalls have shut down. But not Amadou Traoré. He's still holding on. His father, Kamya, is president of the Butchers Guild. And like Mador, like Bashir, like so many others in Dogon country, they're not giving up. Not yet. This butcher shop has been in Amadou Traoré's family since 1942, passed down from father to son for generations. But in all those years, they've never faced a crisis like this one. Before the war, Amadou could buy up to 20 head of cattle a week without breaking a sweat. Now, he spent 5 days hunting for just one, and finally he finds it. "How much for that one?" 390,000. "Can you go a little lower?" 385,000 is the minimum. "Come on, give me a break. I'll take it for 300. 315. 325. 380. That's final. The seller won't budge. He took a big gamble, just bringing the animal to market, a dangerous journey through unstable territory. If you don't buy it, the trader shrugs. Someone else will. Cattle are nearly impossible to find now. The war has scattered herds and shattered trade routes. Amadou says just the other day, he drove over 16 miles and only found a handful. "The fighting has to stop," he sighs. "It's the only way. We need peace. If prices keep climbing and supplies stay low, Amadou might have to shut his shop for good." He's Fulani, a people with a long tradition of herding cattle across West Africa. But today, Fulani communities are caught in the crossfire. Farmers accuse them of trespassing. Jihadists recruit among them, and the military often sees them as suspects, not citizens. Normally, Fulani herders migrate south in the dry season, following centuries-old grazing paths. But war has erased those routes. With no one managing the land, cattle now roam into farmland, destroying crops and sparking violent clashes between herders and farmers. These days, a herder says, we're under pressure from all sides. If they catch you, they throw you in jail. And for us, that's unbearable. A herder would give everything he has to avoid a cell. In the chaos, some Fulani have been driven to extremes. A preacher named Amadou Kufa saw an opening. He formed a jihadist group called Katabat Makina, invoking the Fulani-led empire that ruled central Mali in the 1800s. I thank God, he once said in a sermon, for letting me see the day when thousands of Fulani rise to fight on the divine path to martyrdom. Kufa's words spread fast through audio tapes in the 1990s, making him a household name among Fulani communities. His growing army soon gained a foothold across central Mali. One of the most critical crossroads in the region is the town of Mopti, where the Niger and Bani rivers meet. Since 2019, the river has become a dividing line government territory on one side, jihadist-controlled land on the other. And while trade continues across the water, life has changed dramatically. Women can't cross unless they wear black hijabs. Thieves risk losing a hand or a foot. In a quiet meeting, 4 former jihadists, all Fulani, agreed to share their stories. They say they joined the insurgency out of desperation, not ideology. One man recalls the day the military and Dozo hunters stormed his village. They said all Fulani are jihadists, but it's not true. They killed women, children, even elderly women who couldn't defend themselves. Did he lose anyone? Yes. Relatives. Friends. Too many. To fight, each recruit had to supply their own motorcycle and weapons. Some spent nearly $2,000 just to join. Others were forced to convert to a stricter interpretation of Islam, Salafism, a hardline doctrine imported from the Gulf in the 1980s. I'm Maliki, one man said, referring to a much older, more tolerant form of Islam native to the region. They tried to force me to change. I refused and left. Disillusioned and disappointed, these men eventually returned home. At first, their neighbors, mostly Dogon, were afraid of them. But after a while, one says, people saw I meant no harm. They treat me like I never left. Dogon and Fulani have always relied on each other, the Dogon for farming, construction, and digging wells, the Fulani for livestock. Their futures are still intertwined. But many Fulani can't return. They've fled Mali altogether, victims of suspicion, raids, and war. In Mauritania, the most stable country in the Sahel, the Mbera refugee camp now holds more than 67,000 people, most of them Tuareg refugees from past conflicts. But the newest arrivals are almost entirely Fulani. One of them is Chief Bergiso. A year ago, he fled after being threatened by a Malian soldier. He looked me in the eye and said, I won't repeat myself. The Fulani are killing us, so we're going to kill all the Fulani. Bergiso called the local courts for help. They told him to stay put. Everything would be fine. But the soldiers came back the next Friday. This time, they surrounded the village. It happened in broad daylight sometime between 1 and 2 p.m. That's when they stormed the village. No one was spared. In Mauritania, life still isn't easy, but there's dignity. Refugees receive food aid from the United Nations, raise livestock, and send their kids to school. That's no accident. Mauritania has taken a different approach, one that's as strategic as it is humanitarian. Winning over the population means keeping them safe and cared for. After a wave of jihadist attacks years ago, Mauritania didn't retreat, it reformed. Today, its military is considered one of the most effective in the region. At the edge of the Sahara Desert, near the town of Attar, sits one of Mauritania's key air bases. The planes parked here might look like relics from a bygone era, including some models dating back to the 1950s, but they're perfectly tailored for desert warfare. Leading the squadron is Colonel Taleb. This one's the Super Tucano, he says, motioning to the Brazilian-built aircraft behind him. It doubles our operational range, and it's versatile. We can equip it with several types of weapons, from Taurus 50 caliber machine guns to electric turrets and 70mm rockets. These planes are lethal, especially against enemy vehicles. But in this vast and rugged terrain, firepower alone isn't enough. First, you have to find your target. That's where Mauritania's surveillance fleet comes in, A Cessna Caravan, rigged with advanced recon gear, patrols the country's massive 2,000-kilometer border with Mali, a stretch of unforgiving desert that spans over 450,000 square kilometers. Out here, locating a threat before it crosses into Mauritania is a race against time and sandstorms. High above the endless stretch of desert, Lieutenant Yusuf scans the sand with precision. He's not just looking, he's hunting. Using million-dollar surveillance tech, Yusuf commands a high-res camera system with eyes that can see nearly 12 miles out. To him and his team, anyone crossing this harsh terrain could be a threat. And they're often right. Smugglers, black market traders, and jihadist fighters move together in the shadows of this vast land. In one of the poorest countries on earth, Mauritania has invested big in high-tech surveillance because when it comes to national security, cost takes a back seat to survival. When visibility's low, Yusuf explains, we switch to infrared. It picks up heat, not light. Even hours after a truck has passed, the vehicle's thermal footprint still glows in the sand. This desert may look empty, but it isn't. Nomads still roam here, and the lure of gold brings countless miners digging through the dust. On screen, Yusuf spots a truck carrying what looks like weapons. He radios it in. Within minutes, senior commanders at Atar Air Base give the green light. Mauritania doesn't hesitate. Colonel Taleb and his pilots have taken out 25 hostile vehicles in just 3 years. We got access to exclusive footage from one such mission in January 2019. On that day alone, they destroyed 4 jihadist pickups. But it's not just about air raids. Mauritania has rebuilt its ground forces too. In 2009, the country created elite anti-terror squads, 8 units, each made up of 200 highly trained soldiers, guarding the long and dangerous border with Mali. Now a platoon of 80 troops is heading out on a 3-day mission through wild, rugged land. Their trucks are armed with heavy machine guns, covering 18,000 square kilometers of open territory. Every half kilometer they stop. Every bush, every rock could hide an ambush. In this kind of war, they can't afford to make assumptions. But their secret weapon? Not just guns, people. The herders and nomads who cross the savannah every day know the land better than anyone. A soldier asked one. No one. All quiet, the man replies. They shake hands. Trust is the real currency here. To earn it, the army brings medicine, supplies, and shows up regularly not as occupiers, but as protectors. And it's working. When troops roll into remote villages now, they're met with smiles, handshakes, and heartfelt greetings. It's brotherhood, not fear, that defines their arrival. And the change is visible, even in the smallest ways. Since the army showed up, one villager laughs, not even a rooster has been stolen. We sleep peacefully now. Even the local cat walks a little taller. Out here in the wide open desert, the cows roam freely and no one dares steal them. That kind of peace is no accident. Mauritania has learned from its neighbors, especially Mali, where neglect and instability have pushed entire communities toward chaos. Determined to avoid the same fate, Mauritania's government is doing more than just securing its borders. They're reaching into the country's most remote corners with something powerful. Trust. And that trust rides in on camels. In places where trucks can't go and roads don't exist, a unique unit of camel-mounted soldiers, Mauritania's citizen police force, treks across the desert. 25 men led by Colonel El Khalil are about to set out on a multi-day expedition. One last sip before we head out? Yeah, just a little water to hold me until noon. He takes 3 sips enough, he says, to keep him going for half the day. In fact, these nomadic soldiers can survive 24 hours on just 2 liters. Their camels? They can last 10 days in the desert with only 2 canteens. These animals are built for the terrain, able to haul over 800 pounds and travel more than 40 miles a day. But they're no joyride. Camels are stubborn, the colonel jokes. You don't command them, you negotiate. To be part of this elite camel cavalry, it's not enough to wear a uniform. You have to be a nomad, know the land, speak the local dialects, and earn people's trust. Because their real mission isn't just patrol, it's connection. How are things? Getting water, says one local. From the Sahel Gabra well, it's dry. No water means trouble. In the desert, it can spark tension, even violence between farmers. So the colonel logs the intel and moves on. Let's keep moving. At every stop, the soldiers ask the same key questions. Is the well working? Seen anything strange? One herder shakes his head. Nothing unusual. Okay, you're free to go. Another says there's a working well ahead. That's where we'll set up camp, the colonel nods. Inshallah, someone replies. God willing. These men aren't just riding through the desert, they're maintaining it. Their job includes checking and protecting hundreds of wells drilled in recent years thanks to Mauritanian and European Union funding. And those wells? They've been a game changer. By providing reliable water sources, locals no longer have to abandon these remote areas, which is crucial. If they leave, these places risk becoming safe havens for jihadists crossing over from Mali. And yes, these soldiers have seen real threats. We've reported suspicious people before, one says. Some were innocent, others, not so much. When danger arises, they act fast. Out here, any unusual movement could signal something worse. So they stay alert, ask questions, and pass what they learn back to base. This is modern counterterrorism with a nomadic twist. And for now, in this unforgiving land of sand and silence, it seems to be working.